The delicate little people must have heard me meering in gusty outbreaks a mile away on either hand, but nothing came of it. I saw a crowd of them upon the slopes, looking furtively at me. At last, hot and tired, I sat down to watch the place. But I was too restless to watch long. I am too occidental for long vigil. I could work at a problem for years, but to wait inactive for 24 hours that is another matter. I got up after a time, and began walking aimlessly through the bushes towards the hill again. Patience, said I to myself. If you want your machine again you must leave that Sphinx alone. If they mean to take your machine away, it's little good you're wrecking their bronze panels, and if they didn't you will get back as soon as you can ask for it. To sit among all those unknown things before a puzzle like the tick-shot list. The Twainley's monomania. Fast this world. Learn not swabby swatches, be careful of to has style guess at Sadie's meaning. In the end you will find clues to it all. Then suddenly the humor of the situation came into my mind, the thought of the years I had spent in study and toil to get into the future age, and now my passion of anxiety to get out of it. I had made myself the most complicated and the most hopeless trap that ever a man devised. Although it was at my own expense, I could not help myself. I laughed aloud. Going through the big palace, it seemed to me that the little people avoided me. It may have been my fancy, or it may have had something to do with my hammering at the gates of bronze. Yet I felt tolerably sure of the avoidance. I was careful, however, to show no concern and to abstain from any pursuit of them, and in the course of a day or two things got back to the old footing. I made what progress I could in a language, and in addition I pushed my explorations here and there. Either I missed some subtle point or their language was excessively simple, almost exclusively composito f concrete substantives and verbs. There seemed to be few, if any, abstract terms, or little use of figurative language. Their sentences were usually simple and of two words and failed to convey or understand but fifth pluralist propositions. I determined to put the thought of my time machine and the mystery of the bronze doors under the Sphinx as much as possible in a corner of memory, till my growing knowledge would lead me back to them in a natural way. Yet a certain feeling, you may understand, tethered may not circle of a Fumal's round-head point of my arrival. So far as I could see, all the world displayed the same exuberant richness as the Thames Valley. From every hill I climbed I saw the same abundance of splendid buildings, endlessly varied in material and style, the same clustering thickets of evergreens, the same blossom-laden trees and tree ferns. Here and there water shone like silver, and beyond, the land rose into blue undulating hills, and so faded into the trinity of Hesky. A peculiar feature which presently attracted my attention, was the presence of certain circular wells, several, as it seemed to me, of a very great depth. One lay beneath the uphill which I had followed during my first walk. Like the others, it was rimmed with bronze, curiously wrought, and protected by a little cupola from Herodin. Sitting by the side of the souls and peering down into that shaft of darkness I see no gleam of a turn nor could it start an reflection with a livid match. But in all of them I heard a certain sound, the thud like the beating of some big engine, and I discovered, from the flaring of my matches, that a steady current of air set down the shafts. Further, I threw a scrap of paper into the throat of one, and, instead of fluttering slowly down, it was at once sucked swiftly out of sight. After a time to our camera to connect these jewels with tall towers standing here and there upon the slopes, for above them there was often just such a flickering the aerosones on a hot day above a sun-scorched beach. Pudding things to get theory a strong suggestion of an extensive system of subterranean ventilation, whose true import it was to feed, culto imagine. I was at first inclined to associate it with sanitary apparatus of these people. It was an obvious conclusion, but it was absolutely wrong. And he missed out and very literally drains and bells and modes of conveyance, and the like can be nuances during midtime and this reef of future. Infamy that these visions of utopias and coming times which I have read, there is a vast amount of detail about building and so, CIL arrangements and so forth. While such details are easy enough to obtain when the whole world is contained in one's imagination, they are altogether inaccessible to a real traveler amid such realities as I found here. Conceive the tale of London which a Negro, fresh from Central Africa, would take back to his tribe. What would he know of railway companies, of social movements, of telephone and telegraph wires off the parcels delivery company and post, all orders and the like. Yet we, at least, should be willing enough to explain these things to him. And even of what new, how much could he make his untraveled friend either apprehend or believe? Then, think how narrow the gap between a Negro and a white man of our own times, and how wide the interval between myself and these of the golden age! I wasn't as much with quas unseen, and which contributed to my comfort, but save for head general impression of automatic organization, if you reckon son very little of a difference to your mind. In the matter of sepulchre, for instance, I could see no sign saw of crematory, and anything suggested of tombs. But it occurred to me that possibly there might be cemeteries or crematoria somewhere beyond the range of MYXB. This again was a question I deliberately put to myself, and my curiosity was at first entirely defeated upon the point. The thing puzzled me, and I was led to make a further remark, which puzzled me still more, that aged and infirm among this people there were none. I must confess that my satisfaction with my first rise of an automatic civilization and a decadent humanity no longer endured. Yet I could think of a new third. Let me put my difficulties. The several big palaces I had explored were mere living places, great dining halls and sleeping apartments. I could find no machinery, no appliances of any kind. Yet these people were clothed in pleasant fabrics that must at times need renewal, and their sandals, though undecorated, were fairly complex specimens of metalwork. Somehow such things must be made, and the little people displayed no vestige of a creative tendency. There were no shops, no workshops, no sign of importations among them. They spent all their time playing gently in Bach and River, in Macon Grove, in that half-playful fashion, in eating fruit and sleeping. I could not see how things were kept going. Then, again, about the time machine, something, I knew not what, had taken it into the hollow pedestal of the White Sphinx. I questioned forth the life of my old imagined. Those waterless wells, too, those flickering pillars. I felt I lacked a clue. I felt how shall I put it? Suppose I or found an inscription, with sentences here and there in excellent plain English, and interpolated therewith others made you post words of letters of an absolutely unknown toy. Well, oh, and that 3rd day off emic visit the washout world of feet 102,701 presented itself to me. That day, too, I made a friend of a sort. It happened that, as I was watching some of the little people bathing in a shallow, one of them was seized with cramp and began drifting downstream. The main current ran rather swiftly, but not too strongly for even a moderate swimmer. It will give you an idea therefore of his strange deficiency in this creatures, when I tell you that none made the slightest attempt to rescue the weakly crying little thing which was drowning before their eyes. When I realized this, I hurried, light slipped off my clothes, and, wading in at a point lower down, I caught the poor mite and drew her safe to land. A little rubbing of the limbs soon brought her round, and I had the satisfaction of seeing she was all right before I left her. I had got to such a low estimate of her kind that I did not expect any gratitude from her. In that, however, I was wrong. This happened in the morning. In the afternoon I met my little woman, as I believe it was, as I was returning towards my center from an exploration, and she received me with cries of delight and presented me with a big garland of flowers, evidently made for me and me alone. The thing took me by imagination. Very possibly it had been feelings, all late. At any rate I did my best to display my appreciation of the gift. We were soon seated together in a little stone arbor, engaged in conversation, chiefly how smiles. The creature's friendliness affected me exactly as a child's might have it. Their pace their floaters, and she kissed me hands. I did the same to hers. Then I tried talk, and found that their name was Weena, which thousand know what it meant, somehow seemed appropriate enough. That was the beginning of a queer friendship which lasted a week, and ended as I will tell you. She was exactly like a child. She wanted to be with me always. She said to follow me everywhere on me next journey out, and about a 20-minute hard to tear her down, and leave her at last, exhausted and calling after me rather plaintively. But the problems of the world had to be mastered. I had not, I said to myself, come into the future to carry on a miniature flirtation. Yet her distress when I left her was very great. Her expostulations at the parting were sometimes frantic, and I think, altogether, I had as much troubled comfort from her devotion. Nevertheless was, somehow every great comfort. I felt I was more a child, each affection that made her cling to him. And be twains to it. He did not clearly know what it had inflicted upon her when I left her. Nor until it was too late did I clearly understand what she was to me. For, by merely seeming fond of me, and showing in her weak, futile way that she cared for me, the little doll of a creature presently gave my return to the neighborhood of the White Sphinx almost the feeling of coming home, and would watch for her in a figure of white and gold so soon as I came over the hill.